This is Bharat FM.
Good morning, Cincinnati, and good evening, India. I'm your host on Storytellers Cafe, Usha Venkatraman here. Well, today on Storytellers Cafe, there is something that is different. I am the host as well as I'm the guest for today's session. Today is a festival special on Storytellers Cafe. And we've also completed 8 sessions, 8 segments. And today is the 9th session on Storytellers Cafe. Wishing all my viewers a very happy Ganesh Chaturthi. May the God of wisdom bless us all. So like you all know, and for those who are tuning in now, Storytellers Cafe is a 30-minute segment on Bharat FM, which brings storytellers as guests on the cafe. And some of them, master storytellers, we have conversations and expressions with them. But the USP is to listen to stories. Stories connect us. So it's very important to listen to stories. And Bharat FM tries to reach out to the global Indian diaspora by showcasing Indian storytellers, not only from India, but across the world. So we've had 2 international storytellers so far, Kamini Ramachandran from Singapore and Shireen Saif last week. I know most of you enjoyed her session on Krishna from Dubai. So the following month, we have storytellers from Melbourne, Australia, as well as Jakarta, Indonesia. You know, Indians are all over the place and they are wonderful storytellers. So let's get started with today's session, which is a festival special. It is a special for Ganesh Chaturthi. And as you all know, I'm a storyteller. I started my journey about 24 years ago in 1996. I started telling stories when my children were very young. I was one of the room mothers in the school, and I decided to start my journey into storytelling by explaining to children what is Indian classical music. And I never looked back. And I did this with the help of puppets. Puppets became the musical notes. And since then, I have just moved forward. I'm not a trained puppeteer. I'm a self-taught puppeteer. And I trained in storytelling at Kathalaya with Geeta Ramanujam in 2010. But I have been telling stories since 1996, traveling across to schools in Mumbai and even outside Mumbai, little realizing that one needs training to be a storyteller. I thought it was an innate art, which lies within most of us. It's only we don't bring it to our surface. So I have been awarded by the governor of Orissa a couple of years back. And I'm also the founder of Mumbai Storytellers Society, an initiative born out of my zeal to keep the oral tradition alive in India. Since I've been telling stories for so many years, I thought it was time for me to give back to society. And what better way than to set up a storytelling society? So 6 other members supported me and we formed the Mumbai Storytellers Society last year in the month of March. And we also had our first international storytelling festival called MIST, Mumbai International Storytelling Festival, which was in January this year, early this year, just before the pandemic. And it was in twin cities of Mumbai, and we went to the lovely hill station of Panchgani in Mahabaleshwar, very close to Mahabaleshwar. I've also curated and pioneered, I would like to say, Scifari Festival, exploring science through stories. This was showcased last October at the Nehru Science Center. And I'm also very happy and proud to tell you and share with you that I launched Storytellers Cafe on Bharat FM. As you know, that Bharat FM has launched its radio stations in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, as well as in Chicago. So that's actually wonderful. So Bharat FM basically broadcasts live storytelling to the global Indian diaspora. That's what Storytellers Cafe is all about. I have also performed at multiple storytelling festivals and schools across the globe. Along the way, I have traveled across India, Singapore. I was there for the Asian Federation of Children's Content, representing National Book Trust, and presented a paper on animals and birds in Indian children's literature. I've also traveled to Malaysia for the Penang International Storytelling Festival, and twice I have done workshops at the American School in Kuala Lumpur. I was invited to Australia, Sydney, for the Sydney International Storytelling Conference and Festival in 2014, and New York. I have performed at the Hans Christian Andersen Storytelling Center last year in Central Park. And this year, it is a virtual festival. I'll be performing on the 19th of September. So do tune in to Hans Christian Andersen Storytelling Center Facebook page for live broadcast of the same. I've also performed at Boston and Miami. Miami at the Shiva Vishnu temple last year. It was a wonderful experience to perform in front of so many Indians based in Miami, Florida. My storytelling is deeply rooted in Indian culture. I was greatly influenced by my grandmother. I grew up listening to stories from my grandmother in Delhi, where I would go, or I, along with my sisters, would go for a summer vacations and spend 2 months. It didn't matter that it was summer and there was a blazing, heat, a heat wave in New Delhi. I think everything was forgotten. All that I remember is the stories my grandmother would weave and take us to a storyland where anything was possible. There was magic. So that is the beauty of stories. So today, on the occasion of Ganesh Chaturthi, India's beloved elephant-headed deity, I am bringing to Storytellers Cafe the story of the roly-poly elephant-headed Gajamukha in my own style. That is, singing, narrating, and if you look behind me, I have the Shiv Parvati puppets. So that's my style. So let's get started with the story. Everyone knows the story of the birth of Ganesha, but I feel that my story will be something unique. So sit back and enjoy the story. Once something extraordinary happened. Since it was so extraordinary, it needs to be shared. It was the time when wolves rested with the sheep. It was also the time when the peasants and the farmers feasted in the green fields with kings and emperors, when one sun rose and the other set. In those times, this story dates back to many, I think millions of years ago, maybe in the Dwapar Yuga. We have the 4 cyclical, the 4 yugas. So right now, I think we are in Kali Yuga. This dates back to Dwapar Yuga. So in those times, Shiva, the mighty god with the blue throat, lived high up in the Himalayan ranges in Mount Kailas with his beautiful wife, Parvati. Shiva's business was to dance on top of the mountains. His job was to create and destroy the world, and he loved dancing on top of the mountains. One such time, as he was dancing with Parvati, Om dhimiki dhimiki dhimi dhimiki dhimiki dhimi nache Bholanath. Om dhimiki dhimiki dhimi dhimiki dhimiki dhimi nache Bholanath. Nache Bholanath. Nache Bholanath. Nache Bholanath. Nache Bholanath, Nache Bholanath, Nache Bholanath. Om dhimiki dhimiki dhimi dhimiki dhimiki dhimi Nache Bholanath. You know, the Kailas, the beautiful Kailas mountains with its breathtaking views of the lofty Himalayas, always surprised Parvati. After her marriage to the three-eyed Shiva, Parvati came to live in the icy caves of Kailas mountains, along with Shiva's Ganas, his attendants, and his chief attendant, his man Friday, Nandi, the gate guardian of Mount Kailas. Now, Parvati loved Mount Kailas and sighed with contentment. And she also admired and was absolutely taken in by the devotion and love that Nandi had for Shiva. And she thought, since she was now Shiva's wife and his consort, Nandi definitely loved her exactly the same way that he loved Shiva. Now let's see if this was true. Now the story that I'm telling you is not exactly or similar to a framed narrative. There is a story within the story. Now Shiva's business took him away for years and years to distant mountaintops because he had to keep the world going. Now Parvati was left alone, not always. Once when Shiva was away on his usual business, he left behind Nandi, the guardian gatekeeper of Mount Kailas. Parvati was very happy to stay with Nandi. And one day, she was about to take a bath. So she turned to Nandi and said, Nandi, be my guardian. Don't let anyone come in. She said it with a smile, and then she went into her inner chambers. And Nandi very dutifully said, yes, Devi, I will. And he stood guard. But something happened. Shiva had finished his business and was getting back to Mount Kailas. Now Nandi knew he could feel the presence of Shiva. He whirled and he turned and he saw the Lord himself walking towards him. Nandi rushed forward and bowed before Shiva. And Shiva acknowledged Nandi and said, hello, my friend, how are you? And Shiva strode forward, going towards the house, and he entered the house, and Nandi did nothing to stop Shiva. Now Parvati was decking herself up in the inner chambers when she heard the presence of somebody in the outer room. She got annoyed. She remembered she had told Nandi to stay guard and not let anyone in. And her eyes blazed with anger, and she was about to pick up her weapon when she realized that outside was none other than Shiva himself. So Shiva entered the inner chambers and he saw Parvati's eyes blazing with anger, and he just exclaimed, Parvati, what's wrong? And Parvati said with a deep sigh of annoyance, oh Shiva, it's you. I had asked Nandi not to let anyone in, and I meant every word. And Shiva laughed and said, "Oh, Parvati, you don't expect Nandi to stop me from entering my own house, do you?" And he laughed. But Parvati was quite annoyed and disturbed. And a little voice whispered in her ears, "Parvati, Nandi is Shiva's Gana. All the Ganas belong to Shiva." And this stayed in Parvati's mind. And she was not very happy with the situation. Time passed. On another occasion, when Shiva left on his usual business of dancing on distant mountain tops, he took all his Ganas, including Nandi, with him. Sometimes Parvati liked to be alone. She wanted her solitude. She enjoyed it. So she was quite happy. But Shiva's business took him away for years and years. And she felt exceedingly lonely. She was bored. She turned to Mother Ganga and said, "Oh, Mother Ganga, how do I pass my time? Shiva leaves me for years and years. He doesn't care what happens to me. Oh, Himalaya Parvat, how do I pass my time?" And then she sat down in the icy caves, deep in thought. Pal, 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 every moment, how do I pass my time, my time, my time? La la la, la la la, how do I pass my time, my time? La 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 la. Suddenly she woke up with excitement. The perfect solution dawned on her. And she called out to Mother Ganga and Himalaya Parvat and said, "I'm a goddess after all. I can create. I can create myself a baby. That's exactly what I will do. Oh, I will create a sweet, innocent playmate. I won't be lonely anymore, Mother Ganga. And I'm sure Shiva would love this child, this creation of mine." And she ran to the riverbank, and there she gathered the sand, and she poured some Ganges water to it and began to mix up and roll the wet sand into a nice round ball and began to shape the form of baby. She drew eyes, ears, nose, lips, and then the torso. And she looked at the lean form and she wasn't satisfied. So she took some extra sand and filled the stomach and made it into a nice, round, roly-poly tummy and took her forefinger and pressed in the center the belly button. And then she laughed. She clapped her hands and she said, "Oh, Mother Ganga, come and see my baby. Isn't he lovely? Oh, look at him. Oh, Himalaya Parvat, come and see my baby. Isn't he lovely?" And then she put the baby out in the sun to dry. And she waited expectantly. And then she picked up and blew gently over him, breathing life, and then took the baby in her arms and said, "Oh, my child, oh, my baby, my sweet, innocent playmate, I won't be lonely anymore. You are the universe. You are my son. Oh, my darling. Oh, my baby." Everywhere that Parvati went, she took her little baby along with her. She played with him. She laughed at his antics. She sang him to sleep. Kanne, kanmaniye, kannurangai, பொன்னி மயிலோ தோகை மயிலோ குயிலோ கூவும் குயிலோ நிலவோ நிலவின் ஒளியோ இமையோ இமையின் கனவு ராராரு ராராரு Days passed, rolled into weeks. The weeks rolled into months. Months rolled into years. Seasons passed. The little infant grew up to be a young lad of 6. And mother and son had wonderful time in those 6 years. One day, Parvati, along with her son, was taking a walk in the forest that surrounded Mount Kailas. Now they had their eyes and ears open because the forest is a beautiful, full of colors and sounds. The green leaves twirling and swirling and falling down. The bees buzzing, the birds flapping their wings, and the little deer, fleet-footed deer in the forest. Oh, it was a forest of enchantment. Parvati was quite tired after her long walk, and she heard the gurgle of water. A brook was close by, and it pooled into a little pool of water. So she turned to her son and said, "Darling, I'm going for a bath, but stand guard in the forest path. Don't let anyone in. I mean anyone." And she gave a staff to her young child, whom she had named Vinayak. Vinayak meaning one who was created without the help of a man. So the little Vinayak stood resolute in the path, holding the staff in hand, while Parvati went to the pool to bathe. Meanwhile, remember the three-eyed Shiva? For all his 3 eyes, Shiva was pretty short-sighted. Let's hear what happens. Shiva missed Parvati. He loved his wife. He was eager to be with her. Though his work took him away for years, he definitely missed Parvati. So as he entered the forest, Shiva heard sounds, laughter coming from the pool, and he knew right away it had to be Parvati. So he began to walk faster towards the pool, and as he drew closer on the forest path, he saw a strange-looking young lad standing in the middle of the path with a staff in his hand. And Shiva called out to him, "Shoo, boy, move out of my way." And the boy said, "Stop. You can't go any further. Stop." Shiva laughed and said, "Ha, boy, do you not know who I am? I am Shiva, 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 Shiva." The Himalayan ranges echoed with Shiva's name. But the boy stood firm and he said, "Stop, sir. You can't go any further." That's it. Shiva needed anger management. He lost his temper. The veins in his forehead swelled and throbbed. His eyes turned, blazed red in anger. And he drew forward and took his trident and without a thought cut off the boy's head. "Ah, mother!" cried the boy, falling down dead. Now Parvati had just got out of the pool and she heard the commotion outside. Quickly she donned her clothes and rushed out to see. And she saw her son slain, fallen down, head rolled to one side. And she looked at Shiva, and Parvati was inconsolable. Oh, my baby, oh, my son, oh, my son, oh, my poor baby. Shiva, what have you done? What have you done? Now Shiva was perplexed. He looked at his wife and looked at the boy, and he said, Parvati, what's wrong? This young boy was stopping him from entering the pool. And Parvati completely lost her cool. She lamented the loss of her son, and her eyes blazed with anger. And she looked at Shiva and she said, Oh Shiva, you never understand. You stay away for years and years at distant mountain tops. You don't care what happens to me. You leave me alone. I'm lonely. Because I was lonely, I created myself a baby boy, a son to keep me company, my playmate. And look what have you done. Oh, my baby. Oh, my son, my son. Finally, the puzzles in the piece fell into place. Shiva was pretty astute. He realized the mistake that he had committed. And he loved his wife and he didn't want to see her so sad and unhappy. So he put his arms around her and tried to console her. Don't cry, Parvati, don't cry. I will bring back our child. Don't cry, oh Parvati, don't cry. Very well then, if you truly love me, you will do as you're told. Go out into the forest with your mighty trident, and the first living creature that you see, cut off its head and bring it back to me, and fix the head onto our slain son's body, breathing life into him. If you love me, you'll surely do that for me, she said. And Shiva, you know, loved his wife. He did exactly as he was told. He went towards the northern direction. The north is where the pole star is. That's one star that doesn't change its position in the sky. It also signifies wisdom, stillness. So Shiva went into the forest, and the first living creature that he saw was an elephant, a single tusked elephant. Shiva took his trident and cut off the elephant's head, brought it back to Parvati, fixed the head onto his dead son's body, breathing life into him. And lo and behold, the son opened his eyes, and Parvati looked at her son, the elephant-headed Ganesha, Gajamukha, with his big ears, his trunk, and his huge tummy. And she looked at Shiva and she called out to Mother Ganga, Oh, Mother Ganga, look at this creation of Shiva. Isn't he better than my own creation? Oh, Shiva, I love the elephant-headed son of ours. And Shiva heaved a sigh of relief. He was getting rather fond of the sun himself, and both Shiva and Parvati named their son Ganesha. The heavens opened and showered the blessings on this elephant-headed son of Shiva and Parvati, and the whole world rang out with music. Gauri Priya Nandana Gajanana, Gauri Priya Nandana Gajanana, Gauri Priya Nandana. So that was the creation myth the birth of the elephant-headed, roly-poly Gajamukha Ganesha, or whatever name that you want to call him. He's known by many names. And also Ganesha is worshipped in many parts of the world, in Borneo, in Malaysia, in Nepal, even in Greece. He's known as Janus, and also in Mexico. In many parts of the world, Ganesha is worshipped. So, on the occasion of Ganesh Chaturthi, I wanted to share this favorite story of mine, the birth of the elephant-headed god Ganesh. I started my career with this story of Ganesh. I would only tell stories from Indian epics, and then I moved on to telling multicultural folk tales. So on this festival occasion, on Storytellers Cafe, it is my proud privilege to present the story of this elephant-headed god Ganesh. This is a puppet created by, I have outsourced making these puppets. I used to create it myself and my friends would help me. If you see Shiva and Parvati, they are also created by a very good friend, a puppeteer who's based in Mumbai. And he too will be coming on to Storytellers Cafe as a guest storyteller. His name is Kapil Dev. He's a wonderful puppeteer as well as a storyteller. So thank you. With that, I end today's session. I hope you enjoyed listening to my story as much as I did telling it. Thank you.
This is Bharat FM.
बजेगा भारत, झूमेगा भारत. बजेगा भारत, झूमेगा भारत.
This is Bharat FM.